Jesus, Scott, you look like shit, man. What happened?
I don't know, I got fucking wasted last night, and my phone says I texted someone at 3:15 asking them to beat me up, and then at 4:30 I texted the same person saying thanks.
And you don't remember it?
No, same as last time.
I mean, it just seems kind of gay, doesn't it?
I don't know, maybe, yeah.
Well, do you think you're part of some, like, gay beat-up underworld? Like one of those gay beat-up clubs or something?
I know, I dig chicks, man. I don't remember any of it, I was so fucked up. I might...
It's Halloween. The ghouls are out. See? Told you. It's the beautiful truth with Fintan Dunn reporting on the 31st of October 2022 at 8 p.m. London. And, well, it's easy to figure out what did actually happen, because all you have to do is read between the lines of the actual media reports, and it's fairly obvious. Here we go.
Broadway, across of Scott and Normandy.
With the attacker in the house, police say Paul Pelosi was able to make an open line 911 call around 2 a.m. on Friday.
He was the caller. Dispatch kind of took it from there and read between the lines.
On the call, federal sources told CBS News the dispatcher could hear what sounded like someone being threatened in the background and sent a high-priority alert to law enforcement.
Her actions, in my opinion, resulted in both a higher priority dispatch and a faster police response.
Now that's an absolute set of lies there, as you can quickly decode, especially that last bit where the guy's pursed lips say it all about the faster police response. No, none of that's true. Take a look at this close-up of the street outside. This is from Google Maps. Of the street outside Nancy's house. See this car here? Let's just take a look across the street here. See, there's another one here that looks just like it. Okay. Let's just move over to the other corner of the intersection. See, there's another one there. Looks just like it. That's the level of security there is around Nancy Pelosi's house. And all those alarm systems that are connected up, they don't just trigger alarms in their personal burglar alarm security systems, which they have, but also with the Secret Service. This is somebody who is a key individual in the US government, and those systems do not disconnect when they leave the home. All of those alerts would have been triggered. So this story is absolute BS. Automatic security responses would have dictated a high-level Secret Service and police combined immediate response using predetermined response parameters. None of this happened. Why? Because, as was truthfully reported there, the police officer was informed by Paul that this individual was not a huge threat, that it was someone known, that it was someone whose name he knew, that it was a friend. In other words, it was someone who was becoming a bit of a problem, whom he needed to have quietly removed from the premises. And that's why there was clearly a threatening environment in the background, which raised the alert level to grade A, wellness check. Wellness check, that's all. Not home invasion in the home of one of the principal officers of the US government, but just a wellness check as a result of concerns arising out of a call by Paul to get this guy off side. That's what happened. So, situation contained, no problemo. And the cantankerous individual who had to be removed from the scene can require some psychiatric interventions which will keep them offside for quite some time. It's all handled, which gave the cops some time to think about how to spin in association with their spinmeisters, and this is the spin they came up with.
Towards Nancy Pelosi in the world that I follow, which is the radicalization world, she, more than Biden, has become the focal point. You could call it gender, you could, maybe they're targeting her, but it is her, and it is at the rallies, at the Trump rallies, on social media, on True Social, it is Nancy Pelosi who's been the target. So where's Nancy? It's a direct line from January 6th.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
the line they were saying at January 6th.
They were chanting that.
Yeah,
they were chanting that. They were looking for her.
So now you see it. When you're stuck with an embarrassing story, you flip it 180 and flip it back at the opposition. And so by grafting the words "Where's Nancy" on, tying them in to the Jan 6, hey, it's all good. But it's also transparent, isn't it, that this thing is a whole pile of BS. Now, the mainstream are aware that this story has holes in it, and so it was only ever intended to be used, like packaged for mainstream consumption and used for political propaganda and then dropped. But of course it wasn't dropped, and it wasn't dropped by Mr. Tweety Bird here, who tweeted the story, much to the irritation of the mainstream. Elon tweets misinformation about Paul Pelosi. Yeah, and that got him some really nasty ire. Well, he did remove it. There's the tweet. It's gone, of course, now. But Jimmy Kimmel chimed in saying, to Elon, it's been interesting over the years to watch you blossom from the electric car guy into a fully formed piece of SHYT at Elon Musk. Ouch. But in a bizarre twist, Viva Fry had his Twitter account locked for posting the very same story that had been posted by Elon. And the whole thing even tempted me back into the fray, and I posted for the first time in I don't know how long. Let me see, is my account still there? As I refresh that, and my account is still there, and indeed so is my story still there. So it seems as that Twitter's gone a little bit schizophrenic here now. It's got a CEO who's posting hardcore conspiracy theory material from the internet conspiracy domain and then deleting it. And he's also got a Twitter apparatus which is then banning some people for posting that and not banning others. Hopefully this will all be figured out by the content moderation committee, which Elon is setting up in order to be able to wash his hands of all of this and get a bit of distance from it all. But the reverberations continue. The best summary of this, I think, was given by, well, unintentionally by Matthew Gertz, who said that by week's end, a sizable percentage of the GOP base will believe an absurd conspiracy theory positing that Paul Pelosi was assaulted by his leftist gay lover. True, dude, you're absolutely spot on. By the end of the week, a sizable percentage will believe that. And, hey, you can't win them all, dude. That's why the internet was invented. I think we won the information war on this one. And we also won the meme war on this. I can just confirm for you, by the way, that this is not Paul Pelosi waiting for his lover / alleged attacker / individual to show up. That's a totally unrelated event. And this is also not him either. This is an entirely different individual who I prefer not to name at this time. But let's just say I have very high-level sources. And so we turn to serious matters from, you do need to have a sense of humour, though. You need to keep your sense of humour. The moment you lose that, you are truly screwed. So turning to the serious matter of developments in the war in Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin is about to deploy, folks, significant forces, according to Douglas McGregor. He says the news we were given in recent weeks of the mobilization of 300,000 additional US forces or Russian forces for mobilization in Ukraine, he says that wasn't quite the full truth, and the full truth, I'm afraid, is rather more grim.
We're talking about a force of over 700,000 that is building up in various areas around Ukraine in the Russian armed forces in the Western theater. And that force is going to attack in November and December. And equally important for people to understand is this 300,000 man mobilization has occurred. They're largely integrated, they're trained, but the mobilization has not stopped because a decision was made not to suspend it out of fear that we, in fact, are bent on going to war with Russia. So by January, it is very reasonable to expect that there will be 1 million men in the field fighting for Russia.
I was very...
And the interviewer just breezes right on, as if Douglas McGregor had said nothing of consequence there. He said what you heard, that an additional 300,000 are likely to be mobilized in the weeks ahead, and that by January a total of 1 million strong army will be ready to begin operations or to continue operations in Ukraine, led by a general called General Armageddon in what is effectively the main battle of World War III. What could go wrong, eh? Well, a lot could go wrong. That's what could go wrong. Especially when you begin to move from what has been a situation where we've had the Russians being confronted by mercenary armies and Ukrainians. But when you move to using your own military forces, such as the United Kingdom has, according to the Russians, the United Kingdom was involved not only in the Nord Stream attack, but also in the recent attacks in the Black Sea. So when you begin to do that, then you're starting to move into direct confrontation. What are US, UK up to? Are they attempting to provoke the Russians here? Certainly the recent response by the Russian forces seems to indicate they're well aware of this now, but they haven't made a big public noise about it. So that seems to indicate there's going to be some kind of a response. So how are the British establishment handling all this? Let's take a listen. Sir Alex Younger is a former head of British intelligence. Let's have a listen to what he told the Times about these claims by Russians, which this presenter dismisses as propaganda.
Well, look, he's obviously got an intelligence background, but the Russians have been doing disinformation propaganda since the time of the Tsar. It's a thing that they appear to attach particular importance to. It's absolutely not new. And we don't do disinformation. What we do is operationalizing the truth. That is the...
Do you get that? We don't do disinformation. What we do is operationalizing the truth. If you're going to lie, you might as well be outrageous.
It's absolutely not new. And we don't do disinformation. What we do is operationalizing the truth. That is the big...
And what's this spook's evaluation of the current state of the war in Ukraine? Let's take a listen.
What is your best assessment of the state of the Ukraine conflict right now?
Well, I think we're going into a score draw at the moment, and 8 months on. So if you'd said to me...
We're going into a score draw 8 months on. It's almost a repeat of that scene from the movie Brazil, in the very opening scenes, where the minister is asked, the terrorism campaign is going on for 7 years now, Minister. And he says, beginner's luck. I don't know what planet these people are living on. And what about peace, eh? What's his attitude to the prospect of peace and negotiation?
And until there's really clear indication that he's completely given up on any idea that he can win this militarily, there isn't a conversation. After that, there is a conversation. Obviously, that is how this ends. But any idea that that's done over the heads of the Ukrainians against their wishes, which is clearly what Putin's angling for, I don't see any appetite for that within the West.
A fairly lackluster and unconvincing conversation there. Let's turn to Douglas McGregor and his take on the issue of peace and the need for it.
So I would utterly reject that. We have an interest in peace. That's our one interest. We should be intervening now, right away, before Ukraine is utterly and completely destroyed, because they are being beaten to a pulp.
And when you say intervene, you talk about intervene diplomatically to bring about a ceasefire to this situation here.
My great fear is that maniacs in Washington will say, well, we'll send our troops in. We'll go into Odessa. We'll go to Lvov, maybe a little further, and we'll go in with the Poles. We'll go with the Romanians, and the Russians will be deterred. That is not going to deter the Russians, because the Russians have convinced themselves that we are committed to their destruction. And we are allying ourselves with people in Europe, particularly the Poles, who are openly talking about destroying Russia and have for a long time. So what we're effectively doing is we're creating a nightmare scenario for the Russians. So if we do those things, the Russians are not going to sit quietly by. They'll probably give us 2 hours to turn around and get out, or we will be considered co-belligerents and they will destroy us.
There is no reverse gear for Vladimir Putin, for Russia, for the BRICS, for any of those who are standing up to the Davos elite and the New World Order. There is no reverse gear. There is only forward to the conclusion. Hopefully, that conclusion won't result in a true Armageddon. All right, that's it for this edition. I'll be back with more, and I do hope you'll join me for that. In the meantime, for breakfornews.com and for Fintan Dunn and for informedconsent.ie, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting. See you soon.